Hello, my friend. Sit with me a while, and I will tell you my story. Let us step back through the corridors of time, into candlelit chapels and echoing cathedrals, where every stone breathes music, and every silence is a prayer. I lived not for fame, nor for fortune, but for the glory of God, and for the unshakable joy of crafting perfect harmony. My story is not one of extravagance or scandal. No, mine is a life composed like a fugue, layer upon layer, theme upon theme, each echoing the last, and culminating in divine resolution. I was not a star in my day, but history would see fit to give me a place among the masters. If you are ready, I will tell you how a poor orphan boy from Eisenach came to shape the sound of centuries. My name is Johann Sebastian Bach, and this is my life, as I lived it. The music in my bones. I was born on the 31st of March, 1685, in the little town of Eisenach, within the Duchy of Saxe-Eisenach in what is now Germany. My family name, Bach, already carried the scent of music. For generations, we were town musicians, pipers, organists, fiddlers. It was not merely a profession. It was a birthright. My father, Johann Ambrosius Bach, was a respected violinist and trumpeter. From him, I learned the structure and soul of music, not just how to play it, but how to feel it. My mother, Elizabeth, was gentle, pious, and ever encouraging. But tragedy struck early. When I was just 9 years old, both of my parents passed away, and I was sent to live with my elder brother, Johann Christoph Bach, in Ohrdruf. There, under his stern yet guiding hand, I continued my musical education. He owned a treasure trove of manuscripts, Pachelbel, Buxtehude, Frescobaldi, and though he tried to keep them from me at times, I confess, I copied them by moonlight. I still remember the thrill of tracing every note, every ornament, learning their secrets as if they were whispered by angels. The journey begins. At the age of 15, I walked over 200 miles to Lüneburg, to the Michaelisschule, a prestigious choir school. I sang for my supper, as they say, but more importantly, I gained access to a world of music far beyond the small town walls I had known. Here, I absorbed everything: French courtly style, Italian grace, North German organ grandeur. I listened to visiting musicians, memorized what I heard, and spent countless hours at the keyboard. I became a chameleon of style, learning not to imitate, but to integrate. That same year, I was offered the post of organist at the new church in Arnstadt, and there, at last, I had my own instrument, my own choir, my own church to fill with sound. I was barely 18. Master of the organ. I threw myself into my role. I practiced the organ as though it were a conversation with the divine. I tested its limits, writing complex pedal parts, rich harmonies, and cascading fugues that turned heads and raised eyebrows. My improvisations were bold, dramatic. Sometimes too dramatic, perhaps. The elders in Arnstadt didn't quite understand my intensity. I once took an unauthorized leave of absence to walk to Lübeck, over 250 miles, to hear the great organist Dietrich Buxtehude. I intended to stay a few weeks. I stayed nearly 4 months. Such was the power of inspiration. When I returned, the church council was less than pleased. They scolded me for being late, for confusing the choir with my intricate counterpoint, and even for letting a young woman, Maria Barbara, my cousin and soon-to-be wife, sing soprano in the loft. Soon, I was on the move again, seeking a place where my ambitions would be welcomed, not curtailed. Weimar and the first great works. In 1708, I accepted a position in Weimar, this time as court organist and chamber musician to Duke Wilhelm Ernst. It was here that I entered a golden period of creativity. The organ was majestic, the court musician skilled, and the Duke appreciated the grandeur of sacred music. Here I composed many of my most celebrated organ works, including the famous Toccata and Fugue in D minor, a piece that still echoes in the rafters of cathedrals and the soundtracks of modern films. I wrote brilliant chorale preludes, weaving Lutheran hymns into elaborate meditations of sound. I also wrote sacred cantatas, each a weekly sermon in music. And during these years, my children began arriving. Maria Barbara and I would have 7 together. Family and fugue intertwined in our little home. But tensions at court arose again. I was passed over for promotion. Offended, I resigned, and was promptly thrown into jail for a month for insubordination. Yes, even a composer can cause scandal if his pride is wounded enough. Köthen, the Court of Instrumental Glory. In 1717, I found a new home at the court of Prince Leopold of Anhalt-Köthen. The prince was a Calvinist, and thus his court did not place as much emphasis on church music. At first, I feared I might be adrift without sacred commissions. But instead, I discovered something magnificent: freedom. Prince Leopold was a music lover and an accomplished player of the viola da gamba. He treated me not merely as a servant, but as a respected artist. With no liturgical duties to burden my pen, I turned my energies toward instrumental music. It was during these years that I composed some of my most enduring works. The Brandenburg Concertos, a set of 6 orchestral masterpieces, each a dazzling experiment in instrumental color and structure. I sent them to the Margrave of Brandenburg as a sort of job application. I never received a reply, but history took notice. The Well-Tempered Clavier, Book I, a set of 24 preludes and fugues in every major and minor key. A compendium, a challenge, a teaching tool, a work of deep beauty. I intended it to prove that one could write music in any key with the new well-tempered tuning systems. The violin partitas and sonatas, cello suites, and orchestral suites, pieces of such structural perfection and emotional depth that they remain among the most frequently performed and recorded in all the classical repertoire. I poured myself into these works, knowing I was creating not just for the moment, but for posterity. My wife, Maria Barbara, stood by me, ever the quiet source of strength, until, tragically, she did not. In 1720, I returned from a journey with Prince Leopold to find that Maria Barbara had died, suddenly and without warning. She had been buried in my absence. I was crushed. The music stopped for a time. Love, loss, and a new beginning. But life, like music, continues. In 1721, I married again, Anna Magdalena Wilk, a court singer of exceptional talent and gentle character. She was 16 years my junior, but we shared an intense musical bond. Our household became a hive of sound, children playing, students practicing, harpsichords humming. Together, Anna Magdalena and I had 13 children, though only 6 survived into adulthood. Among them were Carl Philipp Emanuel and Johann Christian, who would grow to be fine composers in their own right. Anna Magdalena was not only my wife and muse, she was my copyist, collaborator, and confidant. She copied many of my works by hand, preserving them with loving precision. To her, I owe the survival of countless pages of my legacy. These were happy years, domestic, musical, and prolific. Leipzig, the Cantor of St. Thomas. In 1723, I accepted the most significant post of my life, Thomas Cantor in Leipzig. It was a demanding position, requiring me to oversee music for 4 churches, teach Latin at the St. Thomas School, direct the boys' choir, and compose a constant stream of new works. I was not the city's first choice. In fact, I was their third. But when they finally extended the offer, I accepted, and with it, began the most challenging and fruitful chapter of my life. Here, I wrote weekly cantatas, each one a small theological drama, scored for voices, strings, woodwinds, and sometimes brass and timpani. Within 5 years, I had composed over 300. Around 200 survive. These are not mere church music. These are sonic sermons, explorations of sin, grace, judgment, and redemption. Works like Jesu, Mein Freud, Wasche auf, Ruft uns die Stimme, Ich habe Genig. I also composed the St. John Passion and the monumental St. Matthew Passion, vast oratorios that trace the crucifixion of Christ with unrelenting emotional depth. The latter, especially, stands as one of the great sacred achievements of all time: 2 choirs, 2 orchestras, and a vast spiritual canvas. The climax of devotion, Mass in B minor. In the final decade of my life, I turned inward, not from the world, but toward God, toward order, toward the very foundations of music itself. I assembled my Mass in B minor, not as a single commission, but as a testament of faith and artistry. It is my credo, my offering. I pulled from earlier compositions and refined them, shaping a Catholic Mass from a Lutheran soul. The Kyrie and Gloria I had written earlier were reproposed and expanded. I added new Sanctus, Credo, Agnus Dei movements, each etched with grandeur, humility, and divine architecture. It was never performed in full during my lifetime. Perhaps I knew it was not for men of my day to fully understand. I composed it for eternity, blindness and the final notes. As I aged, my eyesight failed. I was nearly blind in my final years. An English surgeon attempted to operate on my eyes, but the procedure only made things worse. Still, I composed. Still, I dictated music to Anna Magdalena and my sons. My final work was The Art of Fugue, a masterful treatise on counterpoint. It remains unfinished, trailing off mid-fugue as if the hand of God had gently taken the quill from mine. On July 28, 1750, I passed from this world. Some say I saw light before I died, that my vision returned for a moment. Others say I slipped away quietly, without fanfare. My legacy. In my lifetime, I was admired as an organist, respected as a teacher, but not celebrated as a composer. My music was too complex, too deep for the fashions of the day. After my death, I was nearly forgotten. And yet, my son Carl Philipp Emanuel carried my torch. A young man named Felix Mendelssohn would rediscover my St. Matthew Passion and revive it in 1829. From there, the world came to see what had lain quietly in the dust, that I was not a relic, but a foundation. Today, they call me the father of harmony, the master of counterpoint. My well-tempered clavier is studied by every serious pianist. My Brandenburgs ring out in concert halls. My sacred works stir hearts across centuries. I did not seek glory. I signed many of my scores with Soli Deo Gloria, to God alone the glory. But if you hear my music and feel something stir within you, then, my friend, my purpose has been fulfilled. And that's another chapter from the pages of history, proof that the past is filled with legends, leaders, and visionaries who shaped the world we live in today. But history is far from over. There are still so many incredible stories to uncover. So if you enjoyed this journey through time, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to History's Icons for more legendary tales. Who or what should we explore next? Let me know in the comments. Your idea might be the next great story we bring to life. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next episode of History's Icons, where the past comes to life.